Hello friends, and welcome to this FlutterFlow tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll be implementing the signing in with Google function in our FlutterFlow apps with a Supabase database. A huge shout out to Elvin Zaputra 5839 for suggesting this awesome function. I think it's a really useful function and is super relevant in our real world applications. So enough yapping, let's get straight into it right now. Alright, so over here I have my base FlutterFlow project set up with a home page, a register page, as well as a sign-in page. You can clone this base FlutterFlow project. I've put the link down in the YouTube video description below. So once you've cloned this project, the other requirements to have are a base Supabase project set up, as well as a Google Cloud Console account. Now the first thing that we have to do is that we have to link our Supabase project to our FlutterFlow app. So under Settings and Integrations, and under App Settings, we'll enable authentication. For the authentication type, it will be Supabase, and for the entry page, it will be the sign-in page. For the login page, it will be the home page. Next, we can scroll down, and under Integrations, we'll go to Supabase. We'll enable Supabase, and for the API URL, we'll go back to our Supabase project, and we'll go under Project Settings. Under Configuration, we'll click on API, and we'll copy and paste this URL over here. And now we also copy and paste this anon public URL key. Now we'll press on Get Schema. Now we can go to our Google Cloud Console and we'll create a new project. Once your project has been successfully created, we'll go under APIs and Services and we'll go under OAuth consent screen. We'll choose the external user type. We'll click on Create. And now you have to give an app name. Note that do not use the name Google in your app name, as that will result in errors. You would also have to give a support email as well as a developer contact information. Next, you can click on Save and Continue. For the scopes, we'll just save and continue. And now you can add some test users so that you can test the Google sign-in function without having to wait for Google to authenticate and verify your users. Now we'll just go back to our dashboard. And after we have set up the OAuth consent screen, we'll go to Credentials. And now we have to add some credentials. We'll choose OAuth Client ID. And as for the application type, we'll be covering web applications, Android apps, as well as iOS apps in this video. So first, we'll deal with the web application. We'll have to add an authorized redirect URL. And for this, we can find it in our Supabase. We'll go to Authentication. Under Providers, we'll go under the Google provider and we'll copy this callback URL over here. Next, we'll create credentials for Android applications. For the package name, go back to your FlutterFlow dashboard. And under App Details, we'll copy and paste this package name over here. For the SHA-1 certificate, we have to generate it ourselves. So we have to open our command prompt if you're on Windows or your terminal if you're on Mac. And in your command prompt, you would have to paste this command over here. I'll be putting this command in the video description as well. For the key store password, it will be Android, ANDROID, all in lowercase letters. And now you should see that over here, we have generated a SH1 key. So we can just copy and paste this over here. Do note that if this is your first time implementing a Google sign-in and generating a SHA-1 key, that you would likely be met with this error over here, where key2 is not recognized as an internal or external command. This is because we have not yet downloaded the key2 module into our computer just yet. So first, we will have to install key2 on your system, and the requirements to do so is that you would have to have Java installed on your system as well. To install Java, you can click on this link over here, and you can download the Java SDK depending on whether you are on Mac or on Windows. So just follow the instructions in this article, which I will also be linking in the video description. So if you're on Windows, you have to follow these steps in order to add the key2 folder to your system path. And if you follow all those steps, you should be able to generate the SHA-1 key. So back to our Google Cloud Console. After copy and pasting the SHA-1 key, we can now create. And now lastly, we have to create the credentials for iOS apps. So for the bundle ID, once again, we can go back to our FlutterFlow dashboard and we'll copy the package name and paste it in the bundle ID over here. If you're releasing your apps on the App Store, you would also have to give the App Store ID as well as the team ID for your app. So now that wraps up the configuration for our Google Cloud Console. The next step will be configuring Supabase for the Google Auth sign-in and login. So in Supabase, under providers, under the Google provider, we want to enable sign-in with Google. For this client ID, it will be the web client. And we'll copy and paste this client ID over here. For the client secret, it will be this one over here. For the authorized client IDs, this one will be under the Android client. And we'll copy and paste the Android client ID. Lastly, for iOS, you can toggle this skip nonce check to be true. And now we'll save. Next, we go under URL configuration, and we want to change this site URL. You can find the site URL in your FlutterFlow dashboard, and under App Settings for Web Publishing, you'd want to copy and paste this site URL over here. We click and save that. And now we have to add a redirect URL to redirect our native users back into our FlutterFlow apps after they have finished their Google sign-in. So this redirect URL can be found under App Details, and under Routing and Deep Linking, it will be the URL scheme. And that's it for configuring Supabase for Google Authentication. The next step will be to add Google Authentication into our FlutterFlow apps. So in your FlutterFlow dashboard, but first we have to add a user data table into our Supabase project. So we want to create a new table. Let's name it users. For the ID, instead of an 8-byte integer type, it will be a UUID type. And we will want to add an email column, which would be of type text. Now we want to go back to our FlutterFlow dashboard, and under Supabase integrations, we want to get schema. And under Supabase authentication, we want to enable Google authentication. Now we have to copy and paste the iOS client ID. So we go back to our Google Cloud Console. And under iOS client, we'll copy and paste the client ID. And we do the same thing for the web client. Now we can implement the actual Google sign-in functionality in our app. So in our widget tree, let's deal with the sign in with Google first. So with the sign in with Google button selected, we'll go to the action flow editor and we'll search for Supabase and we'll choose the login action. For the auth provider, we'll just choose Google. Now we can deal with the register page. Click on the register with Google button, and for the action flow editor, we'll add an action. And we'll also add the login action with Google. But now we have to add an additional action when registering an account. We'll search for Supabase and we want to insert a row into our users table. For the ID, it will be the authenticated user's user ID. For created at, it will be the global properties current time. And for the email, it will just be the authenticated user's email. Now we can close this. And that's all you have to do to implement Google Auth in your FlutterFlow apps with Supabase. Unfortunately, we are not able to test the Google authentication function in the run and test mode in FlutterFlow, as you would need an emulator or publish your web app on a secondary domain to be able to do so. However, please feel free to refer to this video to see how Google authentication works in your FlutterFlow apps. So that wraps it up for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you have learned now how to implement Google Auth in your FlutterFlow apps with Supabase. Stay tuned for the next video. Thank you and goodbye.